Again, this is our update of the pilot projects that we've done with a bunch of states here. I want to give an overview of some of the equipment that was used as well as how the project went. These are the states that we specifically participated with in the pilot project. We haven't had any information back from Utah and Texas yet. Utah is still getting started due to some administration changes within the state. This is the type of tag that is predominantly used within the pilot project. This is the Hanamicron or Anatrace tag, along with the colors. And to give you an idea of how this tag differs from the low frequency tag, if you're not aware, you've got about 6 inches to a foot range with the low frequency tag. Typically, with this tag, with the handheld reader, you're up to 10 feet. And with this tag technology, you're up to 20 feet with stationary readers that you'll see, like this one down here that we'll show in the presentation. So this is a pilot tag up in Wisconsin that was used in the animal. It looks like a standard tag. This is one, it happens to be one that is previous to the pilot project, but it's the same size as a small one. Again, showing typically what happens. The animal is scanned, the data goes into some sort of handheld computer, or it is scanned by a stationary reader in front of a chute or over a chute or through a gate or an alley, and again, wirelessly the information goes into the computer and is correlated. So this piece of video was taken, and these pictures were taken by state of Colorado. This is an elk handling facility in Colorado. You can see up here at the top, there's this reader. It's kind of an L-shaped. This is the corner with 2 readers pointing one down either side of the L shape. And then the video that's coming up is the elk coming in. They close the gate behind them. It's reported that they all read in this case. Every animal that had a tag was immediately read into the system. What they're doing here is they have 2 of these elk that didn't have tags in them, and they were trying to figure out which ones they were and pull them off. So as they ran these animals back for their particular processing, they'll cut one off here in just a minute. It's been reported that this was exceptional use of the technology based on these wild elk that normally would be so difficult to capture and tag and gather any information on. This is an example of what one of the screens might look like, that when the animals are read, that red 0 up at the top, it will increment to however many number of animals you've scanned, and the ID plus the descriptions and whatever you have on the animal on the left are highly editable. So this is from the pilot in Hawaii, on the Big Island of Hawaii. Moving the animals onto the scale. Just briefly pause this for a second. The way this was configured is we had these antennas. There were 3 of the antennas, 1 here and 2 behind, that were facing the animals as they came in. And as these animals walked onto the scale in the pouring Hawaii rainstorm, all 21 were immediately read as they went onto the scale. Lots of work during the pilot project in auction yards. This was a little over a year ago, about 15 months ago, up in Montana at Billings Livestock. They're inserting the tag and reading the bright tag, or the brucellosis tag. The scanner is sitting right above the chute out of the view here, and the gal here with the handheld is inputting the bright tag to correlate that with the UHF tag that's going in. And the reader is tuned such that it's not reading any of the tags on the table. Later on, at the sister market at Hayes, just across town, this is a video of, there's 4 antennas on the gateway here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Many of you may have seen this video at other presentations, but this shows the animals going through, and every animal that had been tagged prior to the sale was read and associated with its buyer post there with the buyer number in the software. This is at Brush in Brush, Colorado, the Livestock Exchange. It's Dr. Paul Chard that sent me this video. He was another participant in the pilot project. He's just showing how you might scan the animals as they go in front of you at the yard. Now it's important, you'll notice that he's running them across one at a time as opposed to 2 or 3 abreast. And that's important because with the short-range handheld reader like this, if you get an animal in front of the other animal's head, it might block it from reading the signal. But it was no problem in those situations taking them one at a time. In this case, instead of bringing the animals to the reader, he just walks into the pen and scans them. Now it's likely he had all the tags read at this point in the video, but he never looked down to the computer, the handheld that was on his neck to look at the numbers. Every time he's scanning the animal, it's vibrating. I'm going to pause this video for just a minute for just a little bit extra narrative. I happened to stop by Brush several months after the snow had gone last spring. When I got there, pulled into the yard that day, there was a crazed cow running around out with the trucks and the cars, and everybody trying to round her up and put her back in the auction yard, and she ended up heading west towards Denver down downtown Brush. She had been a part of this group of animals that was in this pen pre-sale, and what had happened is they had processed her through the chute. She went crazy, and immediately when they let her out of the chute, she jumped 5 gates, and that's when I came into the story. A few hours later, that same kind of rank bunch of cows that were wild, they had been processed and put in here, and Dr. Chard came over to me with a grin on his face, and he says, "Watch this." So I walked down to the pen with him. Again, the old process would have been to process these animals back through the chute, read the bright tag, and risk another animal getting loose. But in this particular case, in 13 seconds, he walked into the pen and scanned these animals without buzzing them up, without risking injury to people or the animals. And he had the information that quickly to put on his CVI for the transport documentation of these animals going out of state from Colorado. So that was kind of a video. This is just an example from Montana of what the transport document, what the end goal here is. If you're collecting all this information, you want to be able to provide those EIDs in an electronic format that's both readable on paper and in the electronic format that's been talked about so much today. And this is just an example of one of those types of documents that we're creating. This is part of the Wisconsin pilot project. This was taken about a month ago. You can see down here, he's putting the tag in the animal. I apologize, we're not really correlated very well on when it's read versus this video up here. We're just a bunch of engineers. We're not video editors, so it's not really perfectly correlated. But this illustrates, again, the reader sitting right above the chute, right here, reading the animals that are tagged as they come through the chute, and scanning that tag straight into the software. And all they were recording onto this was the breed of the animal along with it, but they had the option post-sale to also putting a buyer number on it as well, but these were all pre-sale on these animals. I have to really compliment this auction as well. This is part of the equity system, and the equity market had some of the best cattle management policies and practices in place of anybody that I've been around. Again, another view of this equity market. Again, you can see the antenna just a little bit better here. In just a second, you'll be able to see the gal that's sitting behind the window here, handing the tagger that's armed with the tag, and she has the archer that is, or the mesa that is sitting there that you see on the screen here. Putting these in. This was fairly typical of what folks wanted to do at the markets with the market pilot projects. I say that, and I still haven't been to 2 markets yet that do the same thing the same way on anything. So there's always little tweaks to the process, as I'm sure you're all aware. I'm going to this is kind of a long video. Just another angle. Again, you can see the antenna above and the gal back here that's running this handheld here, and as he tags the animals. I'm going to scoot forward just a bit. All right, so this next video is in California at 101 Market. 101 is unique because not only did they participate in the pilot project, but they also integrated scanning the animals into the market with tags that were coming into the market and recording them with their buyer. Then as the animals were going through into the ring, they were already tagged. Again, this is the tub right before the ring. And as they come into the ring, those animals are being scanned live into the market software by these readers. There's 1, 2, and a third one that's just picking up any stragglers on the side. And the auctioneer is using that information to augment his ability to sell the animals. So this is a great model of somebody, of a market within the pilot project that is trying to not just use it for traceability purposes, but using the tags and the technology integrated with their market software to market the animals. And Jim Warren, credit to him in California, he sees that as a very positive aspect of this. I'll point out this guy up here with his hand over his face. Do you see him there? He just bought 100 animals over what he flew to California to buy, and that's why his hand is over his face. He just keeps buying. He was like a drunk buying too many animals. But he was the main buyer. And these animals, these calves that are in the ring right now, actually came back here to Kansas through the system as a piece of information. But again, using the tag and the technology to market the animals, that's what 101 is trying to do. These are some images on a ranch in California. This is another success from the pilot, or Colorado, excuse me, another success of the pilot project. Again, an example here. I don't have any motion video, so I had to kind of fake it here by the Ken Burns effect. But this was reported again as that other video in the auction yard. When he was able to move those animals one by one past him, he was able to scan every one with the handheld reader. Because I guess he wasn't using the gate to help him gate those animals a little bit, when they started bunching up 3, 4 abreast, they weren't reading 100%. However, they had great success at this ranch on horseback, and one of the things that's happened as a part of the pilot from this is these guys are so enthralled with the technology that they have recently purchased it outside of the pilot to move forward and be successful with the technology and use it for tracking their animals on their ranch. Again, in Colorado at another ranch, actually this was courtesy of Cattlemen's Resource and Brush, but this was in Nebraska. So they're BVD testing the animal. She prints off, they scanned it first, then take the clip, and then the software prints this label off so that they have a barcode-lated sample instead of a bleeding written sample number on the case. I included this video. This is off of our own place in Wyoming, but it illustrates, it's the one video that I have that illustrates loading animals onto a truck on shipping day. Again, per the conversation earlier, these animals didn't need ID to go to the state because they're under 18 months where they were being shipped to. But it illustrates that this is very possible without setting up any equipment to read 100% of the tags as they're loaded onto the truck and then print out a document that goes with that truck or is emailed to the destination with no effort at all. I had sat in that same place multiple times with the little stick reader in previous years with my brothers cursing at me as I was pushing the animals back at them. Point this tag out. This is the one exception to the HANA tag. USDA provided on our own place some of the microtrack tags to test. We put them in last spring. We'll have some information on retention, better information on retention this coming spring. But this picture here is of the microtrack tag, and this one as well. So the microtrack tags are in the cows in this image, and the calves have the smaller antitrace or Handheld Tag in it. And we did not, our gate was really wide here, and we didn't quite have this tuned right, so we only got about 97, 98% reads on these animals coming into that gate. I want to pause it there for just a second, back up. But it appears that the read rate was about equal between the two types of tags coming through that gate system there. As we did that. And again, we'll have more data on that this spring after the animals in May when we work them after a 1-year period. I'm going to turn on the sound for this next section. This is narrated by Dr. Love in Colorado, and he provided this narrated video. Hopefully we can all, Oh, that would have been too nice if his narration had come across. Well, I'll do my best, and Alice can jump in and help out as we go with this. Again, this is another case going on to a scale. That's the reader box, and again, as he describes it, the reader box pushes the data into the Mesa in this case via Bluetooth. They had, excuse me, they had something, I think 42 animals that they were going to be pushing onto the scale here. And so the 3 readers that are set up, 1, 2, 3, to read those animals in there, those 3 readers read the animals as they went onto the scale. But as the narration points out, they only read 41 of the 42 animals that went onto the scale. And in just a second, I'll explain what they found on that. That's Dr. Love, who's actually doing the talking in the background that you're not hearing. So as they let the animals out here, the writer is going to count the animals and get a hard count and verify how many animals were on the scale. And what they ended up discovering was that one of the animals didn't have a tag in its ear, therefore it didn't read it. And then I'm going to scoot forward just a little bit because I'm not nearly as entertaining as Dr. Love would have been talking. But as they let those animals out, Dr. Love explains that they had 100% retention of the tags in the field on the ranches, and that's basically what we've been seeing. We've been seeing absolute similar retention of any of the UHF tags in the field to any other standard sized dangle tag of similar size. But in this particular case, they noted in this feed lot that there were this wire wrapped around the telephone poles to keep the animals from cribbing the poles. And Dr. Love explains in this video that was the cause of several tags being ripped out, both ranch tags and UHF tags, and therefore that's why they had the 41 out of 42 that had IDs on them. I know NIAA is going to have a copy of this video online for everybody, and therefore you can pull that down and listen to his narration as well. So this is in Oklahoma. Again, similar thing. The unique thing about the Oklahoma pilot project is they did a lot of things that nobody else tried. And this bunk side reader was reported to have worked well when they're either going by with the handheld or these readers affixed to the feed truck here, as long as the animals' heads were in the feed bunks. This Longhorn model, we call it the Longhorn because of the way they affixed the antennas to the truck here, as they drove through the herd, it wasn't reading any of the animals out here, as one might expect, because the distance was too great and the animals were turned the wrong way. So this type of thing was not viewed as a success, but arguably wouldn't expect it to be very successful as well in just driving through the herd. Again, now you can see why it's called the Longhorn. Again, the same type of thing. If they were near the reader, if in the range of the feed bunk, but these animals clear over here to the far right were having difficulty being picked up. This was highly successful. 100% reads reported and easily moved from place to place. So this is similar to when I was holding the scanner on the chute, the handheld scanner, but they're doing it with a stationary scanner that is what I would call semi-transportable. It could be mounted up there pretty quickly and fairly easily and moved within just a few minutes, but it would stand right above the short, and I had no problem reading the tags. One of the other things that Oklahoma did that I'm not aware of anybody else trying is in the feedlot application, they did hot stamping of the numbers on the tags. And they've reported that they hot stamped them until the tags were turning blue, so to speak. In other words, they really heated them up, and they never had a failure from a hot stamp tag. So this is an example of one of the hot stamp tags that they did, and they tried different numbers to make sure that it wasn't hitting the chip that was on the inside and damaging the chip, and they had great success with that. So if a feedlot was inclined to do custom numbering on their animals and hot stamp them with the equipment that they have, that would work very nicely. So for Oklahoma, this is basically a reiteration of what I just said. I'm going to just read this bottom section here. You know, overall, panel readers worked very well and had 98 to 100% read rate on animals tagged. I'd also like to point out that Anatrace also participated in the Oklahoma pilot project, but Oklahoma didn't send me any pictures of that setup. But they reported that it was on an 18-foot alleyway, and that after several trials and some tuning on it, the 18-foot alleyway that Hannah's system had, or Anatrace's system had set up, worked very, very well. They were very pleased with that. So a few animals were not read either. Did not have a tag placed, 7 out of 8. So again, if the tag's not there, it's not going to read it. And or the animal's placed its head in the way to obstruct the tag from being read, 1 out of 8. And then they had about a 5% tag loss that they didn't identify why the tags were lost, but that's about typical for any tag, is that 4 to 5 to 10% depending on the conditions. So this was one of the 2 Oklahoma locations here that they're reporting on. This was the feedlot, and then this one was that calf ranch that you saw the videos going through. So again, 300 Holstein heifers. They tried the panel readers on the feed truck. It was reported by Bill Golightly that in this particular case, the calf ranch that was doing it was kind of technology phobic. And so at the end of the pilot project, they said, like my notebook, I'm comfortable with it. So they're not moving forward with it privately. And I'd say that's about half the cases that we've come across. There's some are so excited because they can do things that they could never do before, and others that realize that they can't, or they're not familiar enough with anything beyond their flip phone. So in Tennessee, they ran 3 auctions. One of the auctions, the Athens market that's pictured here, they, like the 101 auction in California, integrated it in with their software at the market so that when the animals were coming into the ring, it actually brought the information up on that animal and displayed it on the ring. So in this picture here, you see the tag number displayed here. Pause here. The reader is right smack behind this wall, and the way this market works is the single animal, they never run groups into this market from what I was told. They bring one animal in at a time. That animal is read right there, and in fact you can just barely see in the shadows the electronics box here. That animal is read and weighed before it comes into the ring, and that information on the animal is placed directly into the computer here, so they can use it in lieu of a back tag to identify the animal as it comes into the ring. Exciting way to do it. Now, as part of the pilot project, this next image, it's going to show that they're also reading them out of the ring. So you can see here, she has a handheld reader, and this is the technician that's working with State of Tennessee, and she was reading them out of the ring. As part of this, they were also reading them when they were coming into the sale and applying the tags. So they had 3 read points in many cases that were integrated into it. This was Tennessee's cumulative data for the entire pilot project. So they tagged 21,000 animals worth of, well, they had 21,000 reads. They also reported that of the large tags, that's the 118 millimeter, they had 28 that wouldn't read and 36 of the small tags. You add those up and divide it, and it comes out to 0.3% of the tags were no reads in the entire Tennessee project. Again, it was viewed and reported that this was highly successful, and the State of Tennessee is hoping that particularly this Athens market, where it was so successful, is going to continue on with this, and we're in some discussions with them that might happen. But very, very successful implementation of the pilot project funds here. These are some texts that I received out of the market vets out of Montana immediately after this was in January and December of last year. They just, very excited in these texts. Just did 77 through the alley, got them all, 45 head in less than 3 minutes. There's no way they could have done that running them through the chute or correlating with the bright tags off of paper like many auctions do. Got it done without having to run honky cattle through the chute twice. That's always good, right? This was also up in Montana. That was a fun text to receive. Just guess. We only have them in the West. It's those cattle that are out on the BLM ground. From Paul Chard, again, he was the individual in Brush, Colorado. He wrote this note. You got to love that part. Less stress translate to happier critters and the happier crew. So bottom line, Brush Market Livestock Exchange has gone to the point where they're outside of the pilot tagging every sale cow that goes through as part of this, every bred cow that's going through the sale, because it saves them so much time. So these are some of the issues that we included, that we encountered with the pilot. People are not comfortable with the technology. I'll have to say that most of the time comes down to veterinarians. And comfortable is different than belligerent. That most of the time comes down to brand inspectors. So comfortable and belligerent. We've had great success getting people over comfort, and we've had less success getting people over belligerence. When they start out belligerent, it's an awful tough path to move up, but we're working on it. Tag costs moving over. The question always is, okay, once the pilot's all over, what's the cost of the tag, and how do we benefit that in our market? And there's various ways, and as we've mentioned, some markets have looked at that and said, hey, this is easy, this is no-brainer. It saves us this time, it saves us trouble, it saves us cost, it saves us mistakes. It's a no-brainer. Tag color. With respect to the pilot project, there was a lot of frustration at the pilot at the various markets that as initially, tag's too big, it's blank, it's yellow, it's ugly. And people would get it in their mind, that's the only tag that exists, that's the only color that exists, it's the only size. USDA, thanks to Neil's efforts, got some smaller versions of the tags out into the pilot project, and those have been very well received in those cases where that was a problem. Tag supplier options. A lot of people want just more than one supplier, and they voiced that opinion very, very, very loudly as we work through this. Integration with third and fourth party software options. As you might know, as you're trying to integrate one piece of software with another piece of software with another piece of software, there's all kinds of integration issues that crop up, and we've been working through those with our customers. Okay, pilot successes. Probably the most important slide here is folks that have given this an honest try were 100% successful and satisfied. And really, that's the key to most anything we do, is if we'll give things an honest try that have good potential, they will be successful. The belligerent ones, they can make it very unsuccessful very, very quickly through sabotage. Has resulted in multiple people involved in wanting the technology in the herder market. That's really one of the greatest measures of success of any kind of a pilot, is if you see people going after the pilot or after a trial or after a test and saying, hey, I want this, I see the benefit of this. It doesn't matter, the cost is reasonable for what we're trying to do, and we're seeing that with a lot of folks moving this into the market. Easier creation of movement documents and less stress to the animals. I think that goes to the heart of what a lot of people have been discussing this today, is if we can gather the information quicker and easier without stressing the animals out and pushing that information into the system and under the rules and the laws that are in place, it makes everybody's job easier.